Perhaps you went through a boy band phase in your 30s, you might just appreciate this Dodge Daytona Charger here. There are dealerships having to close their doors right now. We're seeing an uptick in the number of dealerships needing to go bankrupt and go belly up. Manager special, manager special, literally every single one of them. Really, many of these have been here over a year at this point. So they keep sitting, keep collecting dust, and dealerships have no choice but to turn away and refuse these allocations. $95,185 for this 37 performance package. Pretty sickening that they think that they can deploy that. Don't fall victim to trying to buy one right now. This 2022 model will likely be $10,000 cheaper here in January when the new ones start hitting the lots. We saw vehicle prices go up over 42% since 2019, and I assure you, most people's salaries did not go up the same amount during that same duration. These Hummer EVs here are the root of the problem. $120,000 dang near. Even the luxury segment vehicle sales have slowed tremendously. People who can afford vehicles easily right now, they're wisely holding off too. If you live in northern Colorado, you're gonna get screwed, it appears. Just under $60,000. Blows my mind. YouTube Untamed here. We are ready for a car market reset. The car market bubble that we have witnessed throughout the last few years here is set to burst any day now. In today's video, I'm going to highlight the very clear and specific indicators of just that. How do we know that it truly is about to burst? So stick with me. Here in 2025, we've actually seen the least amount of new models being introduced across all vehicle manufacturers. All vehicle manufacturers, the lowest level of new models being introduced. That combined with the fact that we're actually on track to have the least amount of new vehicle sales take place this year is a huge indicator of really just how bad things are. So last 2 years, we keep seeing these vehicles that carry over unsold, collecting dust just like this here, and that only adds to the problem. And here right now, we're seeing 2026 models sit next to unsold 25s and unsold 2024s. Absolutely insane. August of 2025, and we still see unsold 24s. That's saying something. Another clear indicator of just how bad things are is really throughout the last few years, you'd be hard pressed to find these high-spec, high-trimmed examples of these GMC 1500 Sierras AT4Xs. AT4Xs are a very awesome truck, a very desirable trim of this truck, sporting the 6.2-liter V8. These are incredible vehicles. These would never just sit collecting dust. These would always fly out the shelf. But well, go to any GMC dealership, you're going to see just this. And go to any Ford dealership, you're going to see a bunch of unsold Ford F-150 Raptors just sitting there collecting dust. Let me remind you as to why we see so many of them sitting unsold. It's because of this bad Johnny right here. Hopefully you can see it all right, but we are priced at just under $90,000 for this GMC Sierra 1500 AT4X. Absolutely sickening that that has become our norm for desirably trimmed trucks. This is a 1500, not even a full-size heavy-duty diesel option, dang near 6 figures. And after you pay taxes on it, all the other bogus fees that they're going to slap you with, you are teetering over 100 grand. Let me show you what we're looking at when it comes to the markups here. On the 801A, the non-37 performance package like this one here, the 35-inch tires, they're wanting a $5,000 Northern Colorado market adjustment. So if you live in Northern Colorado, you're going to get screwed, it appears. Let me do you a favor. Pick up the phone, call a couple states over, a state over, and easily find one for under MSRP. Invoice pricing is pretty common now. $83,320 is the MSRP. You guys know, I bought my Ford Raptor 37 performance package in Colorado, in Denver, and I spent invoice on it. Mine's a 37 performance package. Like this one here, let me remind you what the MSRP is. And let me remind you what that markup looks like. A little tighter on this side. Look at that. So apparently they think the 37 is more desirable as it appears. $105,000. MSRP being $95,000. Let me show you over here. Hopefully you can see it okay. $95,185 for this 37 performance package. Pretty sickening that they think that they can deploy that. Forbid you have a large family and you need a full-size SUV, get a load of these price tags on these GMC Yukons behind me. To be fair, each of these here are Denali trimmed examples. They're high-spec, high-trimmed examples, but even then, why does it need to cost 6 figures? Over 100 grand for this 2025 Yukon XL Denali. They're a nice rig, but geez, if you want an American family to come out and buy this thing, make it affordable. You know, General Motors, I don't think they really ever intended for their SUV segment to get into the 6-figure range. I don't believe it. I really wish I can give you a clear depiction of just how many unsold GMC Sierras are sitting at this lot. And this is not just indicative of this local area. There's a ton of people down here in Colorado. These should theoretically be flying off the shelf. But no, people are just voting with their pocketbook. They're not coming out and spending their hard-earned money for these vehicles anymore because they no longer make sense financially. These monthly payments on most of these trucks costing over $65,000 on average, that monthly payment is just infeasible. We're talking $1,200 to $1,600 per month. That used to be mortgage-sized payments. Well, the lineup continues on and on and on this full side. You're not going to be able to see it too well, but you also have a huge lineup of unsold heavy-duty pickup trucks down there at the end. Diesel options, the CR 2500s, 3500s, just sitting there collecting dust. I think a large part of the rub for so many Americans is we saw vehicle prices go up over 42% since 2019. And I assure you, most people's salaries did not go up the same amount during that same duration. You'd be lucky if maybe you've seen a 15% pay increase since then, not 42%. Perhaps these Hummer EVs here are the root of the problem. And let me be very clear with what I'm gonna say here, okay? These here, a ton of money was invested into vehicle manufacturer EV segments. The electric vehicles here, a ton of research and development, a ton of money was poured into these things. Look at that, $120,000 dang near for this Hummer EV 3X pickup. Absolutely sickening. They put so much research and development into these vehicles, poured a ton of money into it, and well, because those come at a huge price tag and they're not selling, vehicle manufacturers need to make up for it somewhere. And that largely means upticking the price tags of all their other units, all their other vehicles amongst their lineup. So the GMC Canyon here, price tag went up maybe just a few $1,000s to try to help supplement their losses for the EV segments at large. It's not just GM. Ford, they had a $4.2 billion loss throughout the last 2 years in their EV segment alone. They're making up for it somewhere at your expense. A bone that I have to pick with dang near every vehicle manufacturer is how much they upcharge on their midsize pickup truck segment. Here we have a 2026. See again, 2026s are already hitting August of 2025, making the 25s a little less desirable, right? A GMC Canyon AT4, $52,435. They're a neat truck, but no mid-sized truck, especially with a 4-cylinder underneath the hood, should cost anything over 35, 40 grand in my opinion. 40 grand is a stretch. Pretend you want the one-up level, the AT4X. The AT4X, right here next to it, let me remind you how much they want for these ones. Just under $60,000. Blows my mind. And what are we seeing with that mid-size segment? A lot of people end up buying these new generation, new wave mid-sized trucks that all have a turbocharged 4-banger underneath the hood, and they're quickly jumping back to the predecessors with a naturally aspirated V6, because that is why a lot of people end up buying them. Natural aspirated platforms are a little bit more reliable, historically speaking, a little bit more affordable, and a little bit more simplistic, easier to work on. These here, a little bit too complex. So we see a lot of this, a lot of the lightly used 2023s and 2024 units sitting collecting dust now on lots because people quickly realize, no thanks. Any good general manager will be quick to tell you that they don't make so much money on their new vehicle sales. Obviously, you have invoice pricing and then MSRP, and anywhere between that really is the dealership making a little bit of money. Even selling at invoice, the dealership can still make some money and have a unit sold, which helps the reallocation rate. So there's goodness in moving metal, no matter how much they really sell it for being honest. But any new good GM will tell you their used vehicle inventory and their service bay is the large money makers for any dealership. And well, they've caught on to that, and now they're starting to hike up price tags of used vehicle inventory. Just slightly, but enough to help make up for the lack of new vehicle sales right now. Sight doesn't surprise me one bit, but I truly wonder how much they expect to get for a lightly used, now a year old, 2024, almost a year and a half, 2 years old, 2024 unit of this Hummer EV. A used one. Somebody bought this, quickly realized this is not it for me, and traded it back in. So if they want $120,000 for the new ones over there, what do you think a true fair price is for a used example? Keep in mind, these brand new will come with a 0% interest rate over 60 months. That was pushed by General Motors, right? That's a vehicle manufacturer incentive that they're offering. So they can't offer that on the used example. So the price tag better reflect accordingly. It better be hugely discounted by comparison to new. The average cost of a new truck in 2025 here being just over $64,000. That's including mid-size trucks, full-size, heavy-duty, you name it, $64,000. And over half of all of the monthly loans out there are now over $1,000 per month. Over half of them. So keep that in mind. That's a huge, huge uptick over previous years. It wasn't all that long ago that you would be hard pressed to see examples like this sitting lightly used. You would never go to a dealership and find a lightly used example of a desirably trimmed vehicle like this. This is a GMC 1500 AT4X. People love these things, generally speaking. People are quickly realizing that the monthly payments are just hard to keep up with. You can't justify spending $1,500 to $1,800 per month on a truck like this, and that's the norm, unfortunately. You know it's a problem when their full-size, heavy-duty diesel option trucks now cost well over six figures. Hopefully you can see it there, guys, but we're looking at $106,540. Well, they don't just have one, they have two of them. And something tells me they'll be sitting here for many, many, many more weeks unsold. And while it should come as no surprise as to how many unsold Hummer EVs are just sitting collecting dust on any GMC or any GM dealership lot, right? These here are just wildly overpriced. And well, this right here is a culprit as to why insurance premiums cost a ton. Not just a Hummer EV, but this is a good prime example of it. $120,000 for this vehicle. If something goes wrong, it gets in an accident, gets totaled out, that's $120,000 or more being paid out to that individual, right? That's huge. And we all pay into insurance. We all pay into the insurance pot of money, and that ultimately affects all of our premiums. When vehicles like this, these wildly overpriced vehicles, get totaled, we all pay for it. Believe it or not, even the luxury segment vehicle sales have slowed tremendously. And this is directed to people who can afford this, right? And the top 1%ers who are coming out to buy a Mercedes-Benz or BMW, they are not coming out to buy it. And they likely have their finger on the pulse of the market. And I think that is another clear indicator there. The folks who can afford these vehicles without any problem whatsoever, even they are not flocking out to buy them. Many of these Mercedes here are being advertised with $8,000 or more off of the MSRP. Right here is a part of the problem. We get so many options now, or they're forcing you to have hybridized platforms, hybridized engines underneath the hood that really nobody wants. A lot of people who buy Mercedes and want to spend a top dollar for them, they want that big, glorious twin-turbo V8, the AMG versions of it, not these rinky-dink hybridized options. People who can afford vehicles easily right now, they're wisely holding off too, right? They're reinvesting or investing their money elsewhere, putting into different stocks. They're being a little bit wiser with their money. Perhaps real estate, they're just putting it elsewhere. They know that something is looming, right? There's a bubble that needs to burst, and I think it's gonna happen soon. You guys might disagree with me on this one here, but another clear indicator, in my opinion, that we're heading toward a market bubble burst truly is the fact that we see so many dealerships now holding firm. They're holding firm to only their vehicle manufacturer incentives and the vehicle manufacturer discounts being applied to their vehicles, right? They're holding firm to that, and they're not doing any additional dealer discounts. Doing additional dealer discounts doesn't really help them too much. They don't profit too much, so they're trying to hold firm to that if it means trying to move that inventory and maximizing their profit still. We just saw that dealership over there charging markups on their F-150 Raptors. We haven't seen that in a few years, really since the height of the pandemic, right? So the dealerships that are trying to deploy that are really just trying to squeeze out every last drip of juice possible if it means trying to stay afloat. Pretty pathetic. You might argue that last point really because shouldn't a dealership be offering larger discounts to move their metal? Why would they be holding firm? Holding firm is an indicator that they can't afford to cut these vehicles loose with huge discounts. They can't afford it. They need to maximize the profit margin on every single vehicle in order to stay afloat. There are dealerships having to close their doors right now. We're seeing an uptick in the number of dealerships needing to go bankrupt and go belly up. That's the fact. Another indicator that we're seeing right now is a lot more leasing options. Vehicle manufacturers who haven't historically offered so many leasing options are now doing so. That's a huge indicator that they just need to move that metal. They need to get that metal off their dealership lot because the flooring costs are starting to eat at them. If you don't know, flooring costs is a monthly interest that they're paying on every piece of inventory on their lot. Every single piece of inventory here is on a line of credit. They don't just own these vehicles outright. And every single month that ticks by, they're paying interest like a credit card on these vehicles. So if it means getting them off the lot, it means getting rid of that flooring cost, and that's huge. So leasing options are increasing. They're ramping up tremendously right now. That's a big indicator. And go to any Mazda dealership. Any Mazda dealership will look like this. There's really not a whole lot of vehicle options here. I would I'd wager to say maybe 30, 35 new options available at this entire Mazda dealership lot right now, okay? These are actually selling. They're selling because Japanese brand is a level of peace of mind when it comes to reliability here. They're affordable compared to most vehicles today. Same goes for Honda dealerships and Toyota cars. Toyota cars like Toyota Camry, the Prius, the RAV4, go to any Toyota dealership, you'll be hard pressed to find those vehicles. You'll see a million Toyota Tacomas, a million Toyota Tundras, and now the 4Runners and Land Cruisers are hitting more. Those vehicles are out of touch with reality. But the cars, they're selling because they make sense financially. And same goes for Mazda here. Go to any Mazda dealership. Don't take it from me, guys. Go to your local Mazda dealership. Tell me, what do you see? Probably looks like this. Guys, I won't spend all day at the Mazda lot, but I do want to show you the most expensive brand new Mazda on the lot that I found. This is the most expensive one, okay? This inline six here, this Mazda CX-90, 40,000, hopefully you can see it, $40,285. This is the most expensive one. When you look at that, and especially when you compare it to all the competition, you'd expect this to be maybe $60,000 plus. I just showed you guys in a recent video the brand new Lincoln Aviators. They don't look terribly different from this. Those Aviators were all like 65 grand plus. So for 40 grand, this makes sense for most Americans. This right here is the second most expensive vehicle on the lot, or it actually might be neck and neck with that one. Let me remind you, look at this, $40,500 for the Mazda Miata here, or MX-5 RF, if you will. That's what they're referring to it as. But this here, I don't know, it's a fun vehicle, but even at that price point, you tell me, is it worth it? Talk about it on occasion, but we have seen a 10 to 15% increase in wholesale value since the beginning of the year. And that's largely thanks to the fact that new vehicles just cost too much. New vehicles aren't selling. Subarus, believe it or not, have actually surpassed Toyota in popularity in the auctions. When it comes to the wholesaling vehicles, these have teetered into being the #1 crowd favorite. And that's largely thanks to the fact that these have seen the smallest price increases since 2019. We talked about it before, but we have seen that 42% increase across all vehicle manufacturers when it comes to their MSRP since that time. Subaru was actually the lowest of any vehicle manufacturer, with a 28% increase since 2019. Obviously, we have some vehicle manufacturers who did more than that, like Jeep. They saw a 54% increase since that time. This here, I think we need to applaud Subaru for doing that. People are doing a lot more homework nowadays, and they're voting with their pocketbook. They're no longer just coming out here and willy-nilly buying a shiny turd. You look at these new Rams and be like, holy cow, they look good. These look nice. I'm gonna go get one. And they all have a little sticker in the rearview mirror saying manager special. So I'm sure you can get a huge discount, but people are doing research, a lot more research, firing up the interweb and trusting reviews and opinions a lot more nowadays. If they're gonna be spending their hard-earned money for these astronomically priced vehicles, they wanna have a level of peace of mind. They wanna know that they can drive this vehicle for many, many years with minimal headache, right? But you just can't do that largely with most Stellantis products like Ram, like Jeeps over here. You just can't do it. Buying this is going to be an inevitable headache, unfortunately, right? They look great, but again, at the end of the day, you can only polish a turd so much. And there's a very clear reason as to why Jeep Wranglers, in particular just Jeep products and Ram pickup trucks, have the longest days on lot time of any vehicle within the United States. We're talking oftentimes over 500 days. 500 days on many Jeep models and the vast majority of the Ram pickup trucks down there, sitting, collecting dust for over a year, year and a half, sometimes teetering into 2 years before actually selling at a tremendous discount and incentivized interest rate. That's pretty sad. Perhaps you went through a boy band phase in your 30s, you might just appreciate this Dodge Daytona Charger here. The Dodge Charger Daytona, $64,000 for this EV sports car. Ugh, pretty disgusting. Because I liked a couple songs by One Direction doesn't mean I went through a phase. Really, dealerships only have just a couple more months to try to milk you of a Ram TRX sale, right? The Ram TRXs, their values went up a little bit because they technically did away with the Ram TRX at the end of 2024. They had the final edition and everything. They did a final send-off of it, but now they're bringing it back. Ram is bringing it back here at the beginning of 2026, and that means the price tags on these used models here are going to come down substantially. So don't fall victim to trying to buy one right now. This 2022 model will likely be $10,000 cheaper here in January when the new ones start hitting the lots, and they're going to be making a ton of them. So hold off, be patient, values are going to tank. Another clear indicator that we are on the verge of a car market collapse really is the fact that so many dealerships now are actually turning away allocations. They're turning away so many allocations on many of their vehicles that just do not sell. The ones that show up to their dealership lots, like those Hummer EVs over there, the F-150 Lightnings, even Jeep Wranglers, believe it or not, are starting to get turned away. Dealers just have lines upon lines of them just sitting collecting dust, kind of like what you see here. There's even more on the other side of the lot here, just sitting. and they have been sitting. Really, many of these have been here over a year at this point. So they keep sitting, keep collecting dust, and dealerships have no choice but to turn away and refuse these allocations. That is detrimental to the dealership and on their future allocations, right? If they start turning them away, well, Jeep is no longer going to want to keep pushing them allocations. So it's detrimental really for both sides, because this is ultimately going to lead to slowing down at the production lines. In Toledo, Ohio, where they build the Wrangler, they're going to start slowing production, and that ultimately leads to layoffs, and nobody wants to see that. Prime example of the Wrangler being turned away would be the 4xe. This is that EV version of the Wrangler here. You can tell by the blue tow hooks. These are being turned away by so many Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Chrysler dealers. Look at the price tag, just under $70,000. Hopefully you can see it okay. Just under 70 grand for it. Even with substantial discounts and incentivized interest rates, dealers can't move these things. People just don't buy it. People who are trying to buy a Jeep Wrangler aren't interested in the EV version of it. Let's face it. But this right here, prime example, they can't move this metal. And for the record, is any vehicle truly a manager special if every single vehicle is a manager special? Every single one of these trucks has the same exact placard in it. Manager special, manager special. Literally every single one of them has the same exact placard. Again, if every single one of them is special, well, none of them are, right? We have Chevy offering their Suburbans, their Tahoes at BMW and Mercedes-Benz price points. And I mean it, right? Let's look at this one right here. This one, I believe, is a Premier. Yep, 2025 Chevy Suburban Premier, $87,000 freaking dollars for this one. I actually like to look at this one better. It's probably gonna be maybe on par, a little bit less. I don't think it's a Premier. This is a, so it's an RST model, and they want $81,255 for it. Since when has that become a reality? It's a Chevy, a General Motors product. This should be affordable for American family. The Suburban really is an American icon, family hauler. But here we are, over 80 grand is commonplace. That's why a lot of people are doing what we did. We ended up buying a 2020 model of the Chevy Suburban. This is RST as well, brand new. You just saw it over here, $81,000 and some change. We spent about $45,000 on ours. And even that I thought was a bit too much for it, but thankfully the miles were very low, 40,000 miles. But again, half the price, dang near. For a lightly used example, this I can justify. That one, not so much. So everywhere I turn at this particular Chevy dealership lot, I just see a bunch of these hidden Chevy Colorados, many of them high-spec, high-trimmed examples like the ZR2 here, just sitting, collecting dust. And they're literally everywhere. Up in front of the lot there, we got a few lined up there. Maybe you can't even see them. There's a few lined up there, and a handful down here, of course. Let me remind you of how much they want for these things. So this one here has that tiny 2.7 liter Turbo Max 4-banger underneath the hood, over $50,000 freaking dollars. $54,315 is how much they want for them. These are all likely going to be about the same price. They're all ZR2s. This one has a little swanky little bumper bull bar on it. Let's see how much they want for this one. Look at that. Absolutely sickening, 61 grand for the Chevy Colorado midsize truck with a mandatory 4-banger underneath the hood. That's a big part of the problem here. So many people are trading in their high-dollar sports cars and high-dollar luxury segment SUVs for cheaper, more affordable monthly payments, like a Mini Cooper here. We see a lot of high-dollar SUVs and sports cars on the lot. Used examples like this. This is a Mustang GT500, of course. This is not a cheap vehicle. Somebody traded in this Shelby GT500 for a $30,000 or $40,000 Mini Cooper because this no longer made sense. Affording this no longer made sense. Right next to it, another prime example, we have a Porsche Macan T. This is a nicely spec'd example here too. Not a cheap vehicle. Well, no Porsche really is, right? Somebody traded in for a Mini Cooper. And well, one more example right here. We have a Cadillac Escalade. Somebody traded in for a Mini Cooper. How about that? I'll wrap up the video there. I truly believe that the writing is on the wall. The proof is in the pudding. It is right before us. It's happening right in front of our eyes. We truly are on the verge of a car market collapse here. And well, people are clearly voting with their pocketbook now. They're no longer coming out and buying new vehicles. They're unloading their very expensive luxury vehicles because they can no longer justify the monthly payments combined with the huge monthly cost of insurance. So let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think we really are heading toward a car market crash toward the end of 2025 here? Do you think the writing is on the wall? As always, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to tune into these videos. If you appreciate this at all, I do respectfully request that you do consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a ton, and I promise you it doesn't go unnoticed. Till next time.